What's up, everybody? We're back. Welcome to the official episode 3 of the Last Wave podcast. This one, we're going to go into one of the stories that I encountered when I put out the ad. If you watched the first video in this series, I'm basically just calling it the ad. In my research and search for stories and information, put out an ad on Craigslist asking for people's input and asking them if they needed questions answered in any scope of the paranormal. That included, they could have emailed me about Bigfoot, UFOs, poltergeist, anything. And I got quite a lot of responses. So if you watched my last video on this one, the first one, thanks for listening. Thank you for that a lot. The support is really helpful. I really do enjoy doing this. I'm still new to this, so forgive me if I'm trying to get my pacing down and get the stories, get them to you in the smoothest fashion and the most interesting fashion I can. So we'll move right along. Again, this is actually one of my first interactions and one of the longest interactions I had with what I'll call, I guess, clients who emailed me and looking for information into their, the paranormal and what they had as far as concerns and questions. So we'll jump right in. One interesting query that came across in my email was from a lady. We'll call Mrs. Smith. Again, I'm not going to name anyone. I'm going to come up with these fake names, Mr. Smith, Miss Smith, John Smith, whatever. Obviously, because this is in my current state, these are stories that I've picked up from different people. I don't want that getting out there, who these people are, and that kind of breaks the whole point of them coming to me personally and asking me these questions. So we're gonna cops this thing, and we're gonna keep these people anonymous, and that makes everybody happy. So I will keep the stories as accurate as I possibly can, as close to the interactions. I'll expand a little bit on my thoughts and my theories on the interactions as well, but it will be mainly taken from direct interactions. So Mrs. Smith contacted me asking about normal paranormal stuff. Her family was experiencing sightings, sounds, touching. So you're talking, ghosts, haunting is what it sounded like. You got your footsteps. This lady and her 2 or 3 kids, I believe she said, were basically hearing things, stuff moving as in footsteps, your normal haunting kind of stuff. She reported that and said that her 3 kids would hear them as well. Members of that family would all see things as well, as far as shadows. One of the older children would see full figures in other rooms. Whenever the children were younger, one of them saw an entire entity, a whole figure. So I mean, it's really just the mom and the kids were just all over the place with this kind of stuff. And again, from the get go, I assumed it was a normal haunting, something in their home. They never seemed to be harmful, as far as I could tell. That was able to comfort them a bit in the fact that they may be scary, but other than a few brushes against them, no one had been hurt or scratched. They sound like an average haunting as far as that goes. Things got a bit more interesting when we talked about doing a home blessing for the family, and Mrs. Smith mentioned that they had had one at a previous home and it did not work. So this led the whole conversation down another path, resulting in the fact that the family had had multiple experiences in multiple homes in multiple states. So that clearly to me, we're on a different level here. That's not just some, old Uncle Joe that passed away, 40 years ago is still hanging around his house. That's not where we're at right now. So through speaking with Mrs. Smith about her family, it seemed it was mainly her and her children, again, who had witnessed all of these different things. Again, seeing figures, hearing things, seeing shadows, just a multitude of interactions is what it seemed like. The one thing about, again, that I said is they did have a home blessing, and Mrs. Smith said it did not work. It actually had a negative effect and made it more prominent, made the interactions more prominent. I didn't dive too much into that. All I knew about that was that it was not aggressive towards the family. It was just more prominent. So that's all I knew about that. The mother also admitted to thinking she may be a bit sensitive in some ways to that. As far as sensitive, when I say sensitive, it means You can, feel a cold chill when a spirit may be near you. You may see them. You may be able to hear them. They may be able to come into your dreams. Basically, a precursor to being a full-on medium is more or less what I mean. So she thought she may be sensitive. Also mentioning her gut instinct is like always very in tune and on point. So the the information I was gathering from this family had led me to a conclusion that I had not actually seen before. And this is, I'm skipping some of this stuff, but mainly it's her seeing stuff, her kids seeing stuff and hearing stuff, all of them seeing things in this house. I told her that the spirits or entities, whatever was in her home, could be attracted to people who are sensitive. Um, Almost like they're surprised that someone can see them. Imagine going around being invisible and all of a sudden someone is staring right at you. That would be something you would want to know and you would want to look into. And sometimes that's been reported throughout history. People seeing that, being able to see that side of things, and in my eyes and in my theory, it's kind of like you're a beacon to them, to you know ghosts, or the other side is what we'll call it. You're a beacon. They can see you. They know that you can see them. So of course they're going to come in and find out what's that about, like a moth to a flame almost. So I thought that was what was happening with this mom. But so given this idea and the fact that her, as well as her children, were seeing things, I propose that her sensitivity to this area may have been passed to each of her children, which in my research over the years is fairly rare. It's not rare that it is passed on. You hear these things about children being sensitive or skipping a generation, or your grandma knew something, could tell a few things that were going to happen, and the second granddaughter twice removed would as well. So you hear about that kind of stuff coming down through bloodlines, but what you don't hear about is an entire family, direct descendant from the mom. I have never encountered, and it may be more common than I think, but in my studies and research, I have not encountered that to where it's a mom, all three of her children, all of her children for that matter, any number, being able to see these things, being able to all be sensitive at the same time. So that was really a remarkable realization for me, and something that I had not seen before. Usually it's a parent and then again one or two children out of a group, or one or two grandchildren further down. This was the mother and each child as well. So that was, again, I've studied these things, but I'm not what I would call an expert by any means. I've just looked into a lot of different things, and that's something that I had never seen or heard of before. So I thought that was really, really super interesting. I talked her through that idea, and it seemed to give the family a bit of peace of mind. Again, while the things they're seeing and hearing are scary and weird, it is possible the spirits are just looking for a chat or looking for hope. Again, they're seeing these people who are reacting to them, and they're like, "Oh, wait, I was just hanging out and you saw me." So I'm gonna, stick around and see if that connection is really there. And again, these spirits are seeing them like beacons. They're like people stranded on an island and seeing a boat that's been, something like that. So it's you hear these stories, and in history you've seen that kind of thing. People who are mediums and channelers are more in line with this ability. They can draw the spirits in and attract them more manually, and therefore channel them through themselves. It is really interesting to me to think that people walking around right beside you could be sensing the ghost that's like just behind you, And I always thought that was really interesting. And that, as far as like that being one of my first big interactions, that really showed me that this whole like ad idea wasn't such a terrible idea, and it could get out to a lot of people and open up some different interactions. I like to think I was able to help that family find some peace of mind, and they don't think they can. I did give her some ability and some things to try to numb down, or not numb down, mitigate some of the experiences they were having. Different things she could put around the home, different vocalizations and things of that nature. Going around audibly saying that this is my house, especially if you're the one that's the main sensitive, in the home, going around saying, "Hey, this is my home. We need you to move on. We need you to move to the light, but you can't stay here." Things of that nature is more along the lines of what I told her. And again, burning sage, that type of thing, something to purify the house, to make sure the spirits that are around, the ones that are still wanting to hang around, are remaining good and are just there because they know you can see them, or they're drawn to you in some way. Again, I like to think I helped them out a little bit, just by giving them, again, some peace of mind to know that they're not just being haunted, that they may actually have a chance to do some good with their ability, even though it's scary. And I definitely understand that. I wouldn't want to be that type of person to just wake up out of bed and there's a figure standing at the foot of your bed or in the next room. That'd be pretty traumatic, I'd imagine. So, I tried to give them the best ideas I could and try to help them as much as I knew how. So, again, that was one of the first interactions I had and one of the longest ones. Um, I cut a lot. It was probably 20, 30 emails, so I cut some of the stories and some of the stuff like that for time. Because again, it's still a new podcast. I don't want to do an hour long, podcast just yet, recounting every email that I got. But again, I just wanted to get the main gist out there. I've got a couple more stories and a couple more of these that I've already jotted down some notes on. So those will be coming up in the next couple weeks. So I hope you continue to listen. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. Throw a like on the video. I know it's on YouTube, but throw a like on it if you can. Subscribe and hit that little bell button at the top so that way you get notified when I get new videos out. Again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.